So 1 minute, sir. Anup sir, 1 minute, sir. Okay, I will start. Good morning. Good morning, all. Uh, I like to introduce this session's guest speaker, Dr. Anup Tambe. He is working as an assistant professor, grade 1, in Department of Computer Science and Engineering at NIT Roorkela. He earned his PhD from IIT Allahabad in the year 2016. His research interest includes artificial intelligence, machine learning, computing, human cognition, and robotics. He developed a research project named as Machine Intelligence and Biomotion Lab in NIT Roorkela. He received an early career research award from SIR, Government of India in 2017 for conducting research on human cognitive state estimation through multimodal guide analysis. He also receives research funding for Indo-Japanese bilateral research projects funded by DST of India and JSP's Japan with joint collaboration with Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology. He was nominated for MHRD External Fellowship, next Japanese Government Fellowship in 2011. He also the receiver of prestigious NVIDIA GPU Grant Award in 2018 for his research in deep learning for healthcare applications. Recently, he got selected as an Indian young scientist in the thematic area of artificial intelligence to participate in 5th BioRack Conclave 2020 held at Russia from September 25th to 21 to 25th, 2020. He has published a good number of research papers in reputed conferences and journals. Uh, Welcome, sir. Welcome to the session, and you can now start the forum. You can take the forum, sir.
So, am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Okay. So, thank you so much, Professor Padmapriya, for inviting me to deliver a lecture session on the recent topics on data science and data analytics. And so, I feel I'm very happy to deliver a talk on this topic. So, now let me share my screen first. Mm. I think some grant
Sir,
permission. Yes.
present now you give it, sir. It will be sharing, sir. Present now will do. Present now and you share your window, sir. It will be coming, sir.
Yes, actually, I'm having some problem that sharing the screen.
Shankar,
Yes, ma'am.
Shankar, see to
So it's showing that you cannot share the screen. You must grant permission in order to screen share.
So there is no permission access. Every anybody can share their screen, sir.
Oh, so I don't know why it is coming in my thing.
Just click the present now button, sir.
Yes, sir. I am just clicking the present now button, and there is a two option. One is your entire screen and a window.
window,
Yeah,
sir.
you
Window, sir.
select Windows, sir. You select Windows, sir.
Window, and you select your PPT, sir.
Okay, okay, madam. Share the screen. Uh, Can you see my slides?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
I'm sorry for the little delay. So there's a problem. Okay. So thank you so much. So now I'll start my lectures. So this topic is that as Madam told me to give a lecture series on advanced analytic and machine learning algorithms for big data, but I'll try to cover these basic things like the data analysis, statistical data analysis, how the persons can do to understand the data science, so how the persons can do data analysis using statistical techniques and these deep learning methods. So, and some portion of practical applications that that I'll touch upon on these classifications algorithms. So we'll taking up some satellite images, because as this talk, as I went through this course, it is something like this agricultural things. So now in the agricultural things, if you take some kind of images from the drones or some other things, then you must have stored some how to handle the satellite images, then how you can classify these different regions, parts of these fields. So that type of things that I just wanted to discuss. So before starting with this data analysis portion, so let me just briefly discuss some mostly with this some vector calculus. So now vector representation, I'll not go get into details in this very hi-fi part. Only the basic preliminary portions that I'll just touch upon in my talk, so that the people will get benefited and how they will implement it. So until and unless people implement it, so it is nowadays is not I mean worthy, because a lot of things are available in internet that you can easily go through it. Basic things is that the fundamental things. So that's why I have prepared the lecture in this way, that I used to take in my class itself. So this is my own PPTs that I have prepared, so that these people will get benefited. The basic things why this terminology will be useful to understand this data analysis portion. So now firstly it comes whenever you are going to handle this data science. So now first it comes some kind of basic introduction to mathematics, like this vector calculus is very important things, then the linear algebra, and the statistics and probability. So three important things is very important. So one is called the linear algebra, then this vector calculus, another is probability and statistics. So I'll just touch upon each and everything very briefly. So now firstly, so now if you have some features, so how do you represent these features? So now here there is a is a set. So now it is a r to the power n. So it means it's an n-dimensional real scale. So it is just a Cartesian product, r into r into r, and where r is a set.
Sir?
Yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, next slide is on. You do the presentation, sir. You go with the slideshow, sir.
Is that is it? So I am in the first slide, madam. Okay, so I am not changing.
Yeah, okay, sir. Okay.
I'm not changing any slides. So whenever I will be changing this slide, I'll tell you. So the second slide. Okay. So this is the first slide. Okay. So now in the first slide, this is a vector representation that you have these some r-dimensional, n-dimensional real space, where if any data that you are going to have, suppose x is a feature vector, so it is a vector. So now suppose, as you can see here, it is a vector is represented in terms of in the column. So that's why it is called the n-dimensional column vector. So n cross 1 that you can have, it has got n components. So whenever you are going to have some this feature vector, it means that we are going to have some kind of dimensions. What is the dimension of this vector? Now if we have the n dimension, then this n dimensions can be written by r into r into r into r. So in the real space. So if it is r square, means you are in the 2D. So 2D means we used to say the Euclidean space, where you can visualize your data. Okay, so and if it is an R3 and R4 and so on, then you should consider, so before 2, then it is considered as a hyperplane. Okay, so now in the r square means you will have the Cartesian product between two sets. R is a one set, so that's a minus infinity to infinity and minus infinity to infinity. So now if you take two elements that in the 2D space, 2, 3 from one set, and these 3, 3 are not equal. Okay, because as you can see, I have plotted there this. If you take the positions of 2, 3 and 3, 3, both are in the different place. So that's why that it is important things that how we are going to represent these datas. And now here you have these two two vectors, one is called A, another is called this B. If each vector will have n components. N components are written in the it is a n dimensional column vectors. Okay, it has got n rows and one column. So that's why A1, A2, A3 it is n components. Similarly, for the another vector, you will have the n components. So now another thing is that if you have the two vectors, then how do you compute the distances? So now the distance is very important things that will be taken care of. That whenever you are going to do some analysis of this data or in the classification technique, so distance is it plays a very vital role. So now these two distances are very common to all of you. So first one is called the Euclidean distance that you can compute from I is equal to 1 to n, ai minus bi, where a and b are the vectors and it has got the n component. So first component a1, then second component is a2, third component a3 till a. Okay, I mean these are the features. I mean this is a samples. So how many samples that you are going to have in your feature vector that you can know. Second thing is called the Manhattan distance. It is from I is equal to 1 to n ai minus bi. So you just take the differences and you take the mod so that you do not have any negative parts. So now next is that there is the important thing is called the metric. So now in any research paper when you are seeing, you will see that is called the Euclidean metric. It's not matrix. So matrix is different and metric is different. This is called that is a distance metric. So now in order to have that there is several properties are there so that you will say the distance is called the metric. Like we can see Euclidean metric techniques that you have applied to classify between two data sets. Okay, or to classify points into one of the classes that you used to have. Now what are the mathematical definitions of the matrix? What are the properties of a matrix? Suppose let A is a set which is a non-empty set, and you have D is a functions. It is a functions with these two sets. That is a cross A. It means it is a Cartesian product where 0 is included in these sets. You can 0 is included, but this is infinity. It's not included. It is excluded. Okay, and DXY is called the ordered pair. Okay, so now you can take first element from A and the second element from this other set. So this one it is called the ordered pair. Okay, and where dxy is not is equal to dy. That you can see. So dyx is taken from one set and another dyx is taken from another set. So it may not be this same. Okay, because x is not is equal to y. So now this dxy takes the value in the interval that you can have this 0. So the distance can be 0. Okay, but it cannot be a negative.
Still, sir?
Yes.
Still, it is in the introduction slide only.
So now I am in the properties of matrix. I mean this is on third slide.
No, sir. No, sir. It's showing only the beginning slide, lecture style. That first slide only it shows, sir. Yeah. Now, okay. Properties of matrix.
Now it is okay.
Yeah, sir.
Now are you able to see in the full screen mode?
Sir, better you go with the slideshow.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Now, so I'm not going to have the full screen. Okay. So now I think it will be better. So if I'm doing some full screen, so there is some problem is coming up. Anyway, so are you able to see these things, the properties of matrix slide?
Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir.
Okay. So now, so these are the properties that you can have. One is called that these are the three important properties. First one is dxy is equal to dyx. So distance may be the same if there is no difference of the two elements that you are going to take the distances, then obviously this is dxy is equal to 0, means while x and y is equal to x is equal to y. If you have, then dx is equal to 0. And third property is called the triangular inequality that you already know, that dxy plus dyz it is greater than is equal to dxz. So this, if the three properties are satisfied, then you could say that this distance is called a metric. And please remember that the distance is not a negative number. Okay, so distance can be 0. Okay, if there is no difference between the data points, then obviously distance is 0 and it is greater than 0. Okay, so now how do you find? So this formula will help you out. This is called the dissimilarity measurement. So oftenly you may come across this term is called the dissimilarity measurement. So now the distance metric that is we use for measuring the dissimilarity, how much similarities are there, okay, between these two data sets that you can say. So now first one is called A. A is a vector, but whenever you are going to prime, so simple A is a column vector, but whenever you are going to write this prime, it is called the row vector. So now row vector, that is written by separating each and every component by comma. So that's why A1 comma A2 comma AM. M means it is a capital M dimensional real space. So you have the capital M dimensions. Means dimensions mean in each column there how many features are there. So that's why each dimension is corresponding to each features, and each dimension represents this one column. So that's why it is called this column. Means this is, and then whenever you are going to write A prime, means it is a row vector. Similarly, you have this B, then B prime, B1, B2 till Bn. So now dp, so now it is a mathematically, it is a generalizations way of writing the dissimilarity measure. dp a comma b I is equal to 1 to m ai minus bi to the power p. It is just a take the mod p 1 to the power p, p is greater than is equal to 1. Now if you put p is equal to 1, then which distance you are going to get? You will get Manhattan distance. Okay, you simply have I is equal to 1 to m a1 minus or ai minus bi. Just simply you just take the differences and you just sum them up. So it is called this Manhattan distance. So this Manhattan distance also sometimes is called the L1 norm. So though there is an important concept in vector calculus, you find the norm, NORM. So norm means that how do you compute this magnitude of the vectors is called this norm. So now if you have the L0 norm, so L0 norm means if you have these two vectors, one is 0, 0, another is 0, 2, then you will have this simply, that is a L0 norm. Okay, so now L0 norm, then you will have the L1 norm. So L1 norm means it is called this Manhattan distance. Now L2 norm. So now L2 means if you just put p is equal to 2, then you will have this Euclidean distance. So similarly, if you just keep expanding it, then that, as I already explained, in the city block distance, or you can say this Manhattan distance. So this diagram that I have drawn it. So if you are starting from these positions, and if you, so now your first starting position is a encircle with some corner, and the ending positions is in the violet color that you can see in the last part. So now whatever path that you are going to have, so you are going to incur same amount of cost. Okay, that you can check. So that's why it is called this city block distance. So it is just take the differences and just sum them up. Okay, next we'll have the chessboard distance. So now that chessboard distance that we simply use, that if you have these two vectors, A which has got two components 1 and 3, and B is another vector which will have two components 10 and 5. Now you put p is equal to 1, then you will have this Manhattan distance d1 is equal to 11. Now p is equal to 2, you will have this square, this d2, then square root of 81 plus 4, which is square root of 85. Now if you put p is equal to infinity, so then you will have, now how do you evaluate when you have this p is equal to infinity? So now then you'll have to take the maximum values of all the possible differences that you have computed. So these are the formula that how do you compute this limit p tending to infinity dp into a comma b. So now this dp a comma b, it will be computed by ai minus simply this. You just do this modulus ai minus b1. You take this simply the differences, and whichever differences will give it to this maximum value, you just take out this maximum one. Okay, so you have only here this two components, and obviously you will have only two values. I mean, you are going to have these two-dimensional vectors. Okay, now if it is a three-dimensional, then you will have these three values. If it is a four-dimensional, you will have this four values. Then out of these n values, now which one will give it to the maximum? Then only that distances that you need to compute. So that's why the formula is max of, or it is argmax. You are just going to passing the arguments. What is the argument? Argument is the distance value. This is an ai minus bi, and out of these I values, I mean n-dimensional vectors. So that many, I mean which dimensions will give it to the maximum value? Only that value that you will have to take out. So that's why it is called the chessboard distance. So as you can see from this diagram, so you may have the different path to reach from this 1,3 to 10,5. But whichever will give it to me this maximum distance, so you can have the distance, you can apply here this Manhattan distance or the city block distance, or Euclidean distance, or you can have the chessboard distance. Then you can see the differences, that how it is like that. So these are the very important concept oftenly used in the data analysis course, that is the distance. Okay, so distance based technique classifier, or you can say minimum distance classifier. So perhaps you some of you already know about this minimum distance classifier. So now that you can apply this way, this which distance based techniques that you can apply. Next is called how do you represent the distance in terms of a matrix representation that you can have. Suppose you have a distance. This is a summation of I is equal to 1 to n, the ai minus bi that you have already seen. So I can write it if you have these two-dimensional vectors. Okay, suppose you have a will have the two components, a1 comma b1, and b will have this a2 comma b2. Okay, so now you can represent it in a matrix form. So distance can be represented in the matrix form. So a1 comma b1 minus a2 comma b2. So it is called this row vectors, and or you can have a1 minus b1 into a2 minus b2. So it is called the column vector. So you can also write. So the two components in this way you can write it. So I am applying some here linear algebra. So now here in between, actually it is a vector. First one is a row vector, second is called the column vector. Now in this intermediate I am using one matrix, so it is called this identity matrix. So 1 0 and 0 1. So if you just use identity matrix, if you multiply it with anything with the identity matrix, so there will not be any effect on your results, that you already know from the linear algebra. Okay, so if you multiply anything with the identity matrix, so now it will not affect on your results. So that's why if you introduce the identity matrix 1 0 and 0 1, then the same result will retain. And this 1 0 and 0 1, that can be generalized. Okay, so your main objective is to find these matrices. Okay, so now the generalizations of the distance, you have C11, C12, C21, C22, a1 minus b1 and a2 minus b2. So now distance is always greater than or equal to 0. So now the matrix that you are going to generate it from these things, it is said to be, so this a n comma n. So first one, so what is the dimension of the first one? It is that is this 1 cross n. Second is n cross n. Third one n cross 1. Then simply you will get 1 into 1 scalar. Are you getting my point? So first, if you see a1 minus b1 into a2 minus b2, so you have 1 cross n, or simply 1 cross 2, because it has got two components. 1 cross 2. Now here it is 2 cross 2. So 1 cross 2 into 2 cross 2, 1 cross 2. If you do this matrix multiplication, then 1 cross 2, and it is 2 cross 1. So 1 cross 2 into 2 cross 1, you will end up with this 1. Means you will have always one scalar value. So now this matrix a n comma n, so this is C11, C12, C21, C22. It is said to be a positive semi-definite matrix. So that is very important concept that is being used in this matrix algebra. So now, so if for every non-zero vector A, so now what do you mean by non-zero vector? So now the vector is called the non-zero vector if this vector does not have any zero component. Suppose if the A will have the different component A1, A2, A3 till An. Now if it is a totally zero, A1 is 0, A2 is 0, A3 is 0, N is 0, then this 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, then this is called zero vector. So that's why a matrix is said to be a positive definite matrix if it satisfies this property. This is very important property. A transpose small a, this is a vector. Capital A, it is a matrix, then small a. So first one is called this, it is a row vector. So its dimension is 1 cross n. Second one is it is a square matrix n cross n. Third one is 1 cross, this is n cross n, then it is a 1 cross n. So now this matrix n is said to be a positive semi-definite matrix or a non-negative definite if for every non-zero vector this condition is satisfied. So there is a two concept. One is called the positive definite and another is called the positive semi-definite or non-negative definite. So this condition, this non-negative definite will be useful in the fuzzy-Simons algorithm. I'm just trying to give it to you this idea where this concept will be implemented. So these things will be used in this fuzzy-Simons concepts, and these things A transpose AT in the positive definite, whenever we'll be using some multivariate Gaussian distributions, here we'll be using these concepts to compute this covariance matrix. So to find this understand the characteristics of this covariance matrix, then we'll be using this concept, positive definite concept. And this positive semi-definite, mostly it is used in fuzzy Simons concepts. So now next is called this some basic statistics. So yeah, as you already know that you have a set of samples x1 to xn, and this mean that you can easily compute by x bar is equal to 1 by n, I is equal to 1 to xi. So these are the formula that you know. This is a mean or average. So how do you compute this mean? So now if I use a one function that is called the fa, and if you just use it, this if I is equal to 1 to n xi minus a whole square. Now if you just minimize these functions, so how do you minimize these functions? So you'll have to just take the differentiations. So how do you take the differentiation? F dash a. Now f dash a, and you'll have to do the differentiation with respect of a. Okay. Now if you follow the derivations, so you will end up with that a is equal to 1 by n, I is equal to 1 to n xi. So that is nothing but a x bar. So whenever I am going to writing x, then below the x, if I writing a dash, then it is a vector. Now x above the x, if I writing a dash, this is called this mean. So don't be confused. Okay, because the nomenclature that I am going to use here. So now this is called this mean, means I is equal to 1 to n, 1 by n, I is equal to 1 to n xi. Okay, and there's a two types of things. One is called the population means, another is called this sample mean. So now we used to have that this sample mean. So sample means that this is 1 by n, but the statisticians, those who are doing their research in the statistics, so they used to have the population mean. So now when you use the population mean, then it will be this 1 by n minus 1, I is equal to n xi. So these are the difference. So, and the statistics means that you will have to do the analysis of the data. So collection of the data is not statistics. So please remember. So statistics means analysis of the data, that is called the statistics. Collection of data is not called statistics. Okay. So now, so if you just do the differentiation f dash a, and you know how to find these differentiations. So del x, or you have the del ay, I is equal to 1 to n xi minus a square. Then you'll have to do the 2 into xi minus a. Then you will have only minus 1. Then you just come out from here side. Then simply you will have end up with this thing. So now instead of taking the xi minus a whole square, I could have taken this modular. But if I take the modular, okay, mod, then this disadvantage of the modular that, so you cannot have the differentiations of the modular for all the points. So that's why we are just ignoring these modulus. Okay, and we used to have the square. Okay, because you cannot have the differentiation, or you cannot do the differentiations for at all the time. So that is why we are using this modular. This is a square. So and if you do the differentiation, then you will have a is equal to xi, and then similarly you can have, if you just put this fx is equal to, these are the formula, I is equal to 1 to n xi minus fx square. So this is the variance that you can easily compute it by this formula. So now the variance, if you have the data points x1 to xn, then the variance will be 1 by n, I is equal to 1 by n xi minus x bar whole square. So that you can easily compute it. So now here some example is there. If you have x1, x2, xn, and if you have some function ga, this function is defined, just take the difference xi minus a. Then if you take the modulus, then what will be the scenario? Now these functions can be computed in this way. Suppose I am taking some example 1, 2, 3, 10. Now if you take the mean, so mean will be somehow is 4. You take the if you have the 4 points, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 100, then it is a 16. It is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 10, that is a 16. Then 16 by 4, it is 4. Then you can have this mean 4. Then if you have the G4, you just put the G4, you can get this 12. But this median, you will have this 2. So now in the median, if you have this odd number, then obviously the middle number will be this median. But if you are going to have, this is an even numbers that you are going to, in this series, then the median will lie between n and n plus 1. So here it is even numbers. So now your median will be like n and n plus 1. Your n is 2 and n plus 1 is 3. So now somehow you will have the median 2 plus 3 by 2, it is 2.5. Now it will give the same results. So if you have the G2 is equal to 10, G3 is equal to 10 and G2.5 is equal to 10. That you can check it. So now your median cannot be a data point. So please remember that if this median cannot be a data points or sample points in the set. Actually it is a set, non-empty set, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 10. Now you can take the median, then it is a 2.5. So 2.5 does not belong to the set. Okay, but if you take the results, then obviously you will get the same results. That is for 2 and 3. So that is the concept of the median and the mean. I think it is clear to you. Now the concept of probability. So now basic concepts of the probability that you know, all of you know the random variables. So now the random variable x, it has got some values with some probability, x1, x2, x3 with the probabilities p1, p2, p3. Then the mean of the random variable, which is denoted by expectation of x. So you can have I is equal to 1 to infinity xi comma pi. So it is a value of its probability. Suppose what is the average salary of a person in some state? Now you have the data that January, February, March you have computed 100 rupees per month. Then other months 200 rupees and other month this thing. So now you how do you, your x1 is 100, x2 is 200, x3 is 300. Now p1 is equal to 3 by 12 because you have the total months is 12. P2, that is a probability that you have to compute, and P3, now what is the average salary? Just I is equal to 1 to 3 xi into pi. That you can easily compute it. So now next is, so that is a binomial distribution. Because why I am discussing all these things? Because whenever you are going to have some data at any format, numeric data, you need to understand this, what is the nature of the data or what is the characteristics of the data. So now in order to understand that what this data follows, what type of distributions. So that is very important things whenever you are going to start the data analysis. Okay, understanding this data and finding a correct distribution which will help you out to classify, for choosing a correct classification techniques. So that is my main objective, to give you this brief outline of this thing. So suppose you have a coin A which is tossed 10 times, where x denotes the number of heads. Now what is the probability of heads? Okay, what is the occurrence of probability of head is p, and the occurrence of the probability of heads is 1 minus p. So now this now you can have this probability of, what is the probability of getting head 3 times, that you can easily apply the binomial distribution NCR, p to the power n into 1 minus p to the power n minus r, that you can easily compute it. And these are the generalization that r is an integers, then it is p to the power r, 1 minus p to the power n minus r. And for the Poisson distributions, so that is a law, which is power law, that is a set of all subset. These are the formula, e to the power minus lambda into lambda square by r. So this is for the Poisson distribution. So sometimes, so there is a test is called, that's how to test this is a distribution. So now there is a main important thing is how do you check that your data follows which distribution. So now there's an easy test is called that chi-square testing. So you apply some chi-square test. Okay, so there is a called the chi-square distributions, and so whenever you are going to test, then you have to first apply the chi-square test of this chi-square distribution, and from this chi-square distribution you have to estimate some kind of parameters. Okay, I'll discuss all these things afterwards, so no, not now. Next is called this covariance. So variance, you know the concept of the variance. Now what is the concept of the covariance? Covariance means that you'll have to estimate the mean of the population on the basis of the mean of the sample. So you have the sample points xi, yi. So now these are the points that are distributed over this two-dimensional Euclidean space. Now you'll have to find out the relationships which will which will represent this. This you are trying to find out a relationships that which will just trying to find that what relationship exists between these data points. So that is the objective for this covariance. Now, as you can see that from these things, that case 1, now these are the data points Okay, so now what I am going to do here, so I am just shifting my mean. So in the actual original axis, your mean is somewhat in 0, 0. Now I am just shifting this mean. So how are you going to shifting this mean? So you have to shifting this mean by xi minus x bar, okay, and yi minus y bar. So this will be, so you this yellow circle, it is just shifting this mean. Now you just divide it. So here you will have this different quadrant. First quadrant means positive, positive. Second quadrant, that you have some sample, this is negative, positive. Third quadrant is negative, negative. Fourth quadrant is positive, negative. As you can see that, so here the relationship between these two variables is called the positive relationship. Why? As you can see that the most of the positive samples dominates the negative samples. As you can see that in the positive, in this first quadrant, these are this negative sample, positive, positive. Now if you just multiply it, positive into positive, then the multiplication will be positive. Now here positive xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar, then it is, you will have the negative samples. Now here negative, negative means it is a positive. So now in the third quadrant you will have the more positive sample, and the first quadrant you will have the more positive sample. So now this total combinedly, the positive sample dominates this negative one. So that's why this relationship is called this positive relationships. So that's why it is R is greater than 0. Whereas in the case 2, if your data are distributed in this shape, so now here you could see that if you just multiply it, that xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar, then here in the second quadrant you are going to have these negative samples, more negative sample, and the fourth quadrant you will have this more negative sample. Then the combinedly this negative sample dominates the positive sample. So where the positive sample lies? In the first quadrant and the third quadrant. Because in the first quadrant, if you do the multiplications from the xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar, the product will be positive. But in the third quadrant also the product will be positive, because you have this two negative. Okay. So now, so second case, you will have this negative correlations. The negative covariance. I mean the relations that you are going to find out. So between these two data, so it is called the negative relationship. But in the case 3, if your data are distributed in this way, it is an uniformly distributed, or then as you can see that for each quadrant that you will have this almost this equal to 0. I mean the relationship is close to 0. I mean it means that if the relationship is close to 0, it means that that all the data points are evenly distributed in each quadrant. So that is the case. So from the concept, if you just have this idea how the covariance is coming. So if you take any data points and if you just plot it in this way, then we will have these things. Then you can easily derive this point. So from these things, I can draw that your next new x coordinate will be xi minus x bar, and new y coordinate is yi minus y bar, which is greater than 0. So now your covariance will be, so that is called the relation, that is 1 by n is equal to 1 to n xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar. So this is called your covariance. I mean this is in these relations. So now the correlation coefficients, so that is many important things that is identified at Rxy, which is defined by covariance of xy divided by variance of x into variation of y. So actually this correlations coefficient is range is -1 to +1. So please remember it is range is minus. So why it is from -1 to +1? Because actually we are going to find out this angle between these two vectors. Now you take the angle between the two vectors. Now the angle to be xi minus x bar, then yi minus x1 minus x bar, y1 minus y bar, then x2 minus x bar, then y2 minus y bar, then xn minus x bar, yn minus y bar. Then you take the dot product. Then if you take the dot product, actually taking the dot product, it is simply this angle between these two vectors. It is a cos theta. As you know, this cos theta, that is your, this is 0 and 1. Okay, so that is why we will have these ranges from this minus. Actually, we will have this 0 and 1, but we are going to have the ranges is this Pearson correlations. Actually, this is an Pearson correlation coefficient, the -1 to +1. So now from actually the concept is coming from here, 1 by n 1 I is equal to n xi minus xy into yi minus y bar plus square root of 1 by n I is equal to 1 to n xi minus x bar whole square. This is a covariance of x comma y. This is a variance of square root of variance of x into variance of y. So there is a proof. Proof is called, this is a Cauchy squares proof inequality is there that you can easily find out from this proof. So now this covariance matrix, sometimes it is known as a dispersion matrix, sometimes it is known as a symmetric matrix, sometimes it is known as a variance covariance matrix. So now actually variance is actually the scatter of the data. So I think all of you already visited some mela, okay, where people gatherings are there. In the mela, most of you have seen, so there is a called shooting. So one big wheel is there, and in this wheel some balloons are posted over there, and you are instructed to shoot these balloons with some gun. Now you are seeing, so sometimes your shooting will be correct, and sometimes you will have the wrong. Now if you just take out the balloon, and if the only wheel will pasted with some white paper, then you will have some dots. Okay, so I think you all of us has, if you visited some mela, you have seen some kind of dots are there. So from these dots, so you can analyze this, how these data are scattered. So there is a good example of the scattering. So scattering means how this is a variance. Variance is the scatter of the data. Okay, and this is just for this reference here that you can visualize in a real life examples. Okay, so actually that is actually a variance, or it is a scattering of this data. Now the dispersion matrix, or you can say this variance covariance matrix, it is mostly a positive definite matrix. So you know the condition for the positive definite matrix, because A transpose capital A small a must be greater than, it is strictly greater than 0. So there is some important, very good observations for this covariance matrix, because whenever you will be handling this data for dimensionality reductions problem, like these cards of dimensionality, so one of the important techniques to handle this dimensionality reduction is called the principal component analysis. That all of you know all these things, and this in the principal component analysis that we used trying to find out this covariance matrix. From the covariance matrix, you need to find the eigenvalues and eigenvectors. Okay, so now when from the covariance matrix, when you are going to compute these eigenvalues, so these are the good observations. So if you just memorize, or if you just understand these properties, so it will be very easy whenever you will be handling these large big data in your case. So all the eigenvalues, or you can say the characteristics root, are greater than is equal to 0 always, and the determinant of the matrix is actually the product of the eigenvalues. Okay, and the eigenvalues and eigenvectors that you can compute for only square matrix. So if the eigenvalues are not same, then the corresponding eigenvectors is orthogonal. So you know you'll have to check the orthogonality property, and all the eigenvalue strictly greater than 0. Okay, if it is positive definite matrix, if your covariance matrix is positive definite, then all the eigenvalues that you are computed from this covariance matrix, so A minus lambda, so you'll have to have the determinant. Okay, that must be greater than 0. Henceforth, the determinant will be strictly positive and greater than 0. So if the determinant is semi-positive definite, okay, then all the eigenvalues are greater than and equal to 0. Now to check that whether your eigenvalues are computed correctly or not from the covariance matrix, so there is a trick. If the sum of the eigenvalues is equal to the sum of the variance, then your covariance matrix is correct. So please remember, because whenever you are going to compute principal component analysis, in applying this, then you have to check that whether the covariance matrix from the data, if you have the 4-dimensional feature vector, then your size of the covariance matrix will be 4 cross 4. If you have n-dimensional feature vector, then your covariance matrix size will be n cross n. Now you have to check that if the sum of the eigenvalues, now the diagonal elements, or from the eigenvectors, so now the diagonal elements of the eigenvectors is called the eigenvalues. Now if you just sum up all the eigenvalues, and if you take the sum of the variances, now what are the variances of the covariance matrix? Now you take all the diagonal elements of the covariance matrix, that is called the variances. Now if the eigenvalues, sum of the eigenvalues is equal to the sum of the variances, then you can say your covariance matrix is correct. Otherwise, there is some problem. You'll have to backtrack it again. Okay, so these are the very important concepts that people are using for this. So I'll have one practical example that I'll explain to you on the base decisions tools that I'll be explaining to you on the satellite images. Next is that there is a very important concept is called the linear regression. That is called in the data analysis portion that when you'll be doing, you'll have to do some predictions. Okay, so in the predictions that first things, if you are going to have the single variables, okay, if you have, then you have, there is a xi is called these independent variables and y is called your dependent variables. Now in the linear regressions concept, you will have to draw a straight line which fits all the samples points, and you'll have to minimize this error. So whenever I'm going to using this minimize the error means least square estimation technique that you have to apply. Okay, we have to use this epsilon, summation of epsilon square means sum of square error. Sometimes in any book you'll have SSE, sum of square error, and the techniques that this is called this least square estimations method. So you'll have to do the differentiations, okay, and the follow. If you do the differentiations and with this A and B, because you have the two unknowns, then you will have this how many unknowns are there, only that many equations you have. So please remember, so if you have the two unknowns, you will have the two equations. If you have the three unknowns, you will have the three equations, otherwise you cannot solve it. Okay, so now you'll have to take the differentiation with respect to A and B, then you'll have to minimize I is equal to 1 to n ei square over A and B, and the best line which fits all the data points after doing the derivation, you will have yi is equal to y bar plus r into sy. Sy is the standard deviations by sx into xi minus s by plus ei, and r is equal to correlations coefficient. So you know the formula of the correlations coefficients, and sy is a variance of y, sx is variance of x. So these are the formula, and the value of error now that is to be obtained from these equations. Okay, so now next is if you apply some multiple linear regressions, so now you have to have this more than one variables. You will have wi is equal to a plus b1 x1 i1 x2 i2 then xki x bk xki plus ei. So you have this k plus 1 these parameters. Now you will have the linear model. Now to check that your model means, you'll have to check this means efficiency or reliability analysis of this model. Okay, so means whenever you are going to apply some statistical model for doing the data analysis, so you need to evaluate this reliability analysis, or you'll have to evaluate its efficiency. So now you do the efficiency of the model, so you need to do some test. Okay, so the test is called the student t-test, or you can have this analysis of variance. So these are these tests. So the student, in order to understand the student t-test, you need to understand the first is null hypothesis and this alternative hypothesis. So these are the concepts that I'll be explaining to you. Okay, these are the very good book that you can find from the pattern recognition's book, that is an Stroop and Berger. Next is called the estimations, probabilistic estimations. So there is two types of estimation that we used to follow. That is, one is called the unbiased estimations and this maximum likelihood estimation. Actually, what is actually estimation means? So estimations means, suppose if you have got finally many data points from a normal distributions, which is be a univariate and multivariate, then the mean of finitely many data points is unbiased estimate, maximum likelihood estimate, and the consistent estimate of the population. That is the concept of the estimation. I am repeating that if you got finally many points from a normal distributions, be univariate, it may be univariate normal distribution, or bivariate, or the multivariate, then the mean of the finitely many points is unbiased estimate, maximum likelihood estimate, and the consistent estimate of the population mean. That is the concept. How it works, that I'll explain. So unbiased estimate means if the average of the value is this original value is called the unbiased estimate. So now for the unbiased estimates, we follow these two things. One is called the simple, means how do you do this thing? Means from the average of the value, how do you compute it? The simple random sampling without replacement we used to have. Another is called this simple random sampling with replacement. Sometimes you must have encountered these things, that this is a random variable. It satisfies this. It is an independent and identically distributed random variable. That you must have seen these things in many research papers or any work. So what is actually mean? So actually it is a simple random sampling with replacement. It's called this IID. I mean the random variable which satisfies this property. So I will explain what is it. Firstly, simple random sampling without replacement. You take 1, 2, then you will have the average. You take pair of values 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4, then 2, 3, 2, 4, and 3, 4. I mean possible combination of values. Then you will have the average. Then you take this total average. But here you will have 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. I mean for this simple random sampling with replacement. Then 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 4. Then 3, 1. I mean you take this. You take the pair for all the possible combination. 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, then 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, then 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, then 4, 1, 4, 2. All set of combinations. Then you take the average, then you take the total average. Then you can have this answer. Okay. So now next is you must have seen this exponential distribution. So before discussing this exponential distribution, so you need to first understand this. What is a density functions? So here we'll have. The concept is called, so when do you say, because the density functions, a probability density functions follows some distribution. I have it. So when do you say a function is called a density functions? Suppose fx is a function. Fx is a function where x lies, x belongs to R, capital R. Real space. So it's said to be a probability density function if it satisfies two properties. One property, if fx is greater than or equal to 0 for all x which belong to R, and the area under the curve is 1. I mean minus infinity to plus infinity, fx ds is equal to 1. So if the two conditions are satisfied, then you say that this function is called a probability density function, or is called the PDF. Okay, so if fx greater than or equal to 0 and integration of fx ds is equal to 1, if two conditions are satisfied, then you could say then it is a thing. I mean there is a important is called the triangular distribution. So now if you take this triangular distribution, so now it satisfies these two properties, then you can have the triangular density function. So similarly, you will have the normal distribution. So now in the normal distributions, that is mostly used, we mostly use in the normal distribution. So it follows mean, mu and variance x square. So now here its density functions, probability density function f is given by 1 by root over 2 pi into 1 by sigma exp of minus of x minus mu sigma square. So now where these are the range, and if you can follow these here Rao books for the linear statistical reference. Now for this bivariate normal, you have, if it is a continuous domain, you have mean is equal to x minus infinity to plus infinity x fx dx. But if it is a discrete domain, you have probability mass function. If x is a continuous domain, okay, then if you are in the continuous domain, then it should be a x fx dx. There's an integration. If it is a discrete domain, then you will have to compute these mass functions. So now simply you can have 1 by sigma root over 2 by x exp minus half x minus mu whole square dx. So where mu is equal to x fx dx and sigma square is equal to x minus mu square into fx. But these are the proof is there. So now how do you prove it? So this proof is there. So I'll have to take this x minus mu is equal to y. Then you take the differentiation. Then if you take the differentiation, then we just this proof is there in this book. Okay, in this Gupta Das Gupta, and there's a odd functions you have. So you cannot have the integration of the odd function, but simply ax is equal to u. Now the variance will be simply E in x minus x square, then simply sigma. So actually these are all the proof, but it is not required. Mathematics course will do that too. So these are this important concept is called the multivariate distribution. So we'll be using this concept for practical applications of the satellite images. Multivariate Gaussian distribution. So now this you have x and capital N. So whenever I am writing capital N, capital X is my vector. So capital N means it is a normal. Okay, means normal distribution. So mu is a vector. Sigma is my covariance matrix. So now the formula is that 1 by root over 2 pi m, capital M, my m dimensional feature vector. Okay. Now determinant of sigma to the power half, exponential of minus half x minus mu transpose into determinant of inverse the sigma inverse x minus mu. So now this sigma, capital sigma, it is called the covariance matrix, and it is a square matrix, and it is a non-singular matrix. So now the determinant of these things is non-zero. Okay, and it is strictly positive definite. And if it is strictly positive definite matrix, then eigenvalues should be greater than or equal to 0, and x will take the uncountable values in this continuous domain. Okay, so now so there is some example is there. How do you recognize of vowels in a speech? That so these are here different classes are there, seven classes, and these are the format frequency f1 to f7. This is a seven dimensional feature vector that because you cannot plot a 7-dimensional feature vector in a 2D. I'm just giving for the sake of illustrations that f1 and f2, if you just these two features, then you have these 7 classes. I'm taking only two features, then there's a 7 classes are there. Now how the Mason is going to recognize this pattern? So now there is some intersection is there into these classes. Then which vowel is going to recognize? There's a problem. So now whenever some intersection in the 2 classes is there, and in intersection of the 3 classes there, here you will have to have the decisions boundary or the decisions rule. Means whenever I am going to have the decisions rule or decision boundary, it means it is a function. So this function is called the discriminant function. So you'll have to take the mean, and you'll have to from the take of the mean. In the red one it is for the first class, black one it is for the second class. You take the mean and you take the distances, okay, from this boundary, and you check which one is having this closest boundary, then you classify this point into one of these classes. Okay, now if there is an intersection between these 2 classes, it may so happen that the points which actually belongs to this class A, but it is classified in class B. So so there is an error. So there is an error is arising over there. And now if there is a point which is actually lie on the line, then how do you take a decisions? Now you take the points and you classify it any one of the 2 classes. That is the thumb rule. If you see that the boundary or the decisions rule, actually decisions rule is called this discriminant functions. Okay, so here if we apply the minimum distance classifier, then you'll have to take the minimum distance, the point that you're going to classify, and which one is this, if the distance is minimum, which points that whenever you're going to compute with the distance from the mean, then the points which is the nearest to this boundary, then you classify it to this class, otherwise in the other class. So that is the rule. But for the 2 class, you can easily have this decision boundary. It should be a straight line. But if you have the 3 classes, intersection of the 3 classes, then you cannot have the straight line. Then you have some curve, or you have some curve, or you have some this straight line, something like that. So it is called, it is not a linear, so it is called this piecewise linear. So it is not a linear function, it should be a piecewise linear function. So all these things that is explored in this Pierre book, Dudahart book, it is there in the pattern recognition book. It's Dudahart, all this concept. So now you know there is an important concept is called the convex set and the non-convex set. Obviously, whenever you are going to do the data analysis, so now it is always better to represent the data in the terms of the sets. Okay, so now these convex sets means these are if you take 2 points take 2 points and you draw a straight line in a region. If all the points in a straight line belong to the same set, then the set is called the convex set. So that is the basic concept. Suppose these are the convex set A. First one, it is also a convex set B, that you can have x1 and x2. You take 2 points in the set B, and from you take 2 points and draw a straight line. And if you see that all the points on the straight line, if it belongs to the set B, then obviously it is a convex set. But whereas in the convex set C is not a convex set, because as you can see, the points which lie in this straight line, which is just outside of this set, so it is not a convex set. So now here it is a non-convex set. As you can see, this is excluded from the sets. Okay. Next is called the convex hull. So convex hull, it is used for the separating the hyperplane. So now if xi plus by plus c is equal to 0. Okay. So now next it is a boundary. Then if xi plus by plus c, if it is greater than 0, it is one class. If it is less than, it is another class. There is a two class. Now if the two classes are disjoint means so there is no common elements there between these two sets. So now the intersection between the two sets are null. Then it is called the linearly separable. Okay, and we have a line to separate out two classes. But if it is not linearly separable, if the intersection between these two convex hull, okay, it is not null, then it is called this non-linear boundary. So perhaps you may encounter the concept is called the non-linear boundary. And then these are the things that this is convex hull. So the main important concept of the convex hull, that the minimal number of convex set that you can generate it using a set, that is called the convex hull. So the main emphasis is called this minimal number of convex set that you can draw. So now from these things, as you can see that in the decision boundary, it is a curve or it is a piecewise linear. Okay. Now how we are going to concept this minimal number of convex set that you can generate, that is called this convex hull. Next is important concept is called the data normalization. That is very important concept. So perhaps that the data that you are going to having, that you need to do some scaling. So data normalizations means that we'll have to scale the features before training. So normalization is one of the techniques for scaling the features. So how do you do? One of the important techniques for scaling is called the subtract the mean. Okay, now you have this data point xi. I mean I from n samples x1, x2, xn. Okay, now you need to scale it. Okay, scaling, you want to scale it from 0 to 1 or -1 to 1. Okay, now how do you scale it? Now you just take the, after scaling the data that will have x hat, then x hat will be xi minus x bar. X bar is, it is your mean divided by standard deviation. Okay, so a common technique to normalize these features, that zero mean and unit variance by a linear method. We are assuming that your data is following these normal distributions. If it is not following the normal distribution, then we will see some other techniques. Okay, so now if the data is not following it is not following the linear models, then we will go for the softmax scaling. Okay, now if it is follows that data is a zero mean and unit variance, then simply you can do these things. But if it is not, this technique is employed in case where the data are not evenly distributed around this mean. The one way we have to adapt for this nonlinear methods. So nonlinear method is called the short-span scaling. So, okay, so now in this short-span scaling, the formula will be x hat will be just a simple things 1 by 1 plus exp minus of y. This is the formula for the short-span scaling. Where y is equal to, you can write simply xi minus x hat divided by this is r small r into standard deviation. So r is a user defined, so it is a threshold that you can check. So these are the formula for this short-span scaling: 1 by 1 plus e to the power exp minus y. So y can be defined, that is xi minus xi minus x bar divided by standard deviation into r. R is a user defined value that you can do. So if your data is not evenly distributed around this mean, then you can have this short-span scaling. I'm just giving you this how you can do this data normalization. This scaling is very important thing. So you'll have to follow it. First, whenever you are going to work with the data science, okay, you need to do this. Next is splitting the data. That is very important in the classification. So we used to split the data into 3 different sets. One is called the training set, another is called the validation set, next is called the test sets. So 3 important sets. So you have the distributions, or you have this some other distributions. You have the distribution 80%, 10%, 10% you may have. Okay. So now the validation is very important concept. So we the validation is that there should not be any common elements between these 3 different data sets. So the intersection between the 3 sets should be null. Okay. So then you will have this very good classifier. So because you'll have to test it, then you'll have to validate it. So validations means you'll have to evaluate. There's an unbiased evaluations of the model parameters. That is called validations. It's unbiased evaluations of your model parameters. I mean, models mean the training model that you are going to develop, because it is a parametrics. Okay. And next is called that we used to have this to check this data reliability. We used to check the cross validation method. So this cross validation method is very important concept that people are using, okay, to test it. Suppose in the cross validation method, we used to have a 5 cross validations technique, 10 cross validation technique. In the 10 cross validation or 5 cross validation technique, we use this leave one out method. What is the concept? Suppose you have these 200 data points. So now in the 200 data points, I am dividing it with equal. I am dividing these 200 data points into 10 sets, and each set will have the 20 points. So how many sets I will have? I will have this A1 will contain 20, A2 20, then A10. I have total 10 sets, A1, A2, A3 till A10. So now the cross validations means you take A1 is for is your test data. A1 set is taken as is your test, then A2 to A10 is a training. Then you classify. Then you will have some error. Note it down. Next is A2. You take it as a test set, and A1, A3 till A10 you take as a training. Okay. Next, then you will have a one misclassification error. Note it down. Then similarly, you take A3 is a test set, then A1, A2. Okay. Then this is called the leave one set out from the entire data sets. Then total how many misclassification error you are going to have? Total 10 misclassifications error. Now in the 10 misclassification error, you compute this mean and the standardization or the variance. Okay? Now after computing this mean and standardization, now you whatever classifier that you are going to use it, you want to validate it. Now which classifier will give it to this less mean? Okay, so your mean is very less and your standardization is also less. Then this classifier will call this distinctly winning classifier. So first one, mean, will give it to this accuracy, and your standardization will give it to the precision. Because I know most of you knowing about the concept of whenever you are going to doing some classification techniques. So now you need to do the performance analysis of the classifier. So now to how to do this thing, we are going to have some confusion matrix. So from the confusion matrix, so you can easily compute it, all sort of things. Okay, so so that is splitting the data. You will have to do so that your validation set and test sets must be separated. Next is called the how do you do these things. How firstly you will have to start with then you have to do some. So any data science work that if you follow these procedures, there is start, that there is a data acquisitions that you have. Your data may be a image data, your data may be a signal, okay, or it may be some sensor data or any other data, okay, or you maybe have some satellite data, okay, or any other data that you have. Next is you'll have to do the data preprocessing. So data preprocessing means firstly there's a two-part analysis called data smoothing and an outlier detection. So now that is a very important concept for these outlier detections. So now, how do you ensure it that? So if any outliers is there, outliers mean unwanted points. If you consider this unwanted point in your data set for classification, then you will have the erroneous result. So that's why it is better for doing this outlier detections. So outlier detection technique is very important technique. That the basic concept is that, so you'll have to just check the points which are far apart. If the points is called the outlier, if it is far apart from your mean, then you could say the points is called this outlier. So then which threshold that you are going to check? Then we'll have to check the threshold should be if your points is far apart from the mean, with that if it is a 1 sigma, 2 sigma or 3 sigma. These are the range. If it is a greater than of 1 sigma or 2 sigma or 3 sigma, then you can say these points are this called as an outlier point. Then you'll have to data preprocessing. So after doing the data preprocessing, you'll have to check these data distributions. So this is very important concept in data analysis work, that is called the data distributions, or we will have to have some statistical method, like that is a WS test. Oh, okay, so WS test that we used to follow. So W means it is a range and S is called the standard deviation. This is called KS test. KS means this is Kolmogorov-Smirnov's test. This is very important to understand the distribution of the data. So I was telling that is fitting the data and understanding the distribution of the data. So which type of test that you need to follow? KS test, then Anderson-Darling test. This is called the AD test. And another is called the SW test, means Shapiro-Wilk test. These are the very well-known common tests which is available, and people are using to see these whether your data are coming from a, suppose, so to know the distribution means that suppose to check that 2 data points are coming from the same population or not. If these data points are coming from the same population with common distribution, it means that your data are following the same distribution. It is not necessary that it should follow always the normal distribution. You'll have to check. And how do you ensure it? So to check visually, you'll have to plot it quantile plot. So the plot that is used to check the distribution, this is called the quantile plot. So using this quantile plot, so you can ensure that these 2 data are coming from the same population with common distribution or not. So that is the main objective. Then after that, to check the distribution, you will have to extract some features, then apply some probabilistic classifier, then you will have to classify performance measure, then stop. So these are the techniques, outlier detection, that I have run my code in some data sets. So you can have some data are separated with some different colors. There is some input data, there is a mean and standard deviation that you can check if your data points xi minus mu. So these are the main condition. If your data are far apart from this mean, so how do you ensure that? By using this 2 sigma or 3 sigma. So maximum you will have the 1 sigma, you can have only 1 sigma, 2 sigma and 3 sigma. Okay, how do you choose the threshold? That it is up to you only, how much these relaxations or compensation that you are going to do. Next is called this, I'm just quickly go through it, so you can, it is not a good, well-known, I mean, it is a well-known technique, but it is not necessary to describe. I just wanted to give it to this on practical applications, so in the best decision that so that I'm just quickly go through it. This is a WS test where you can have this this statistics Q is equal to W by S that you can compute it. Okay, and I'm just keeping this pseudocode. It is my own pseudocode. It is there in my paper also. And this is important things. It is my own plot. This is a quantile plot. So this plot will tell you that whenever you are going to do data analysis and any technique that you are going to apply, you first do this quantile plot. So this plot will tell you that if the data points are emerging from the same distributions or not. If you see that all the data points are roughly located, and if you see this, your straight line is at a 45-degree angle that you can that is drawn, and if your data points are roughly located to the along the straight line, then that you can ensure it that your data are following these distributions. Okay, that you both the data are, so that from these things that both the data are coming from the same population. So because the most of these data are roughly located to the straight line. So that is called this QQ plot. Next is called this Kolmogorov-Smirnov test. So KS test, that is we used to have by using we used to have some small KS test, KS normalities test that we used to have without with this free. It is not required that you have to assume the data drawn from a normal distribution. So it is not mandatory in the KS test. Here you only have to consider this cumulative conditional probability density function. So that you have to this cumulative probability density function that is to be computed. Okay, and you'll have to compute the small estimate and the long estimate when you take the differential. Next, you just check this test statistics. Now here we are maintaining the confidence level is 0.05, means we are ensuring these 95% data are correct. Okay, so now this if the range of the 0.05 percentage, then it means with the confidence level, then you can accept this null hypothesis or you can reject this null hypothesis. So that is the concept. If the values if the empirical values is within the critical region, then you can accept the null hypothesis. Or if this empirical value which is computed, if it is greater than this, if it is not beyond the critical region, then you reject this null hypothesis. Okay, so now rejecting the one hypothesis does not mean that you will be accepting another hypothesis. So please remember. So when I am going to reject this null hypothesis, that does not always mean that you will accept this alternative hypothesis. So to accept this hypothesis, you need to have the sufficient evidence. Okay. So here also QQ plot. I'm just keeping all these things because my intention. So editors, it is there. You can follow any book on that. I'm just keeping. And there's another just concept is called the box plots. So if your data is not normally distributed, then you can apply the box cost transformation technique to make the data are normally distributed. So that is the very important technique that in your case, if it is really required that the data should follow a normal distribution, then you should apply this box cost transformation techniques. So all these things are there. So next is called the feature selection. So there is an important technique that we used to follow is called the Fisher discriminant ratio. So main concept whenever you are going to analysis with the features, and the features will be used for the classification techniques. Two things that you need to remember. One is called this the between class distance that must be maximized, and the within class variance. Okay, that should be minimum. So so these are called the scatter matrix. So now FDR. So FDR can be computed, that is mu1 minus mu2 squared divided by sigma 1 square plus sigma 2. So this is very popular formula. This is if your FDR is large, it is close to 1. Okay, then you can accept these features. So you can take these two class, and for each class that the same features that you can compute this FDR. Then you have to check that which features is really important for my case. So here you compute this FDR, Fisher discriminant ratio, and then you for the features which will give it to the maximum FDR, so that features will be selected, and the features which will give it to the lesser FDR, then these features will be negated. So another way to understand this feature analysis is called the correlation relationship. So there is you can estimate this correlations coefficient, and you can estimate a regression line. And there is a strong correlations. You can have weak correlations, perfect correlations, and no correlations. Okay, and you can compute it. So how to compute this correlation, that I already explained, and you just simply use this regression line y is equal to mx plus c. Then you can check m and c that can compute it, and you just plot the values with this x is independent variable and these values, and then you can check that how your means go, whether your data are linearly correlated or it is a non-linearly correlated. So one way to do these things for the linear correlation and non-linear, you just simply do the scatter plot of the data. So using the scatter plot of this data, you can see this whether your data is linear or non-linear. So one way of doing this. And next is that I'm just skipping all these things because it is not required. I just talk about this is a graph test. I already explained. Dickson test. So it is also another techniques for the outlier detection. That is xn minus 1, xn x minus. All these things are there. So these are the different error metrics that is to be computed. RMSE error. This is a mean absolute error. Hamming loss. All these things that to be computed. So I'll just complete my lectures after describing the practical implementations, so that those will be very much interested to see how the base decisions rule can be implemented. Okay, on this, as this workshop is related to some agricultural field, how the data science techniques can be useful So that's why I thought that I should share with you things. So actually, it is a example of some satellite images. So these images that I implemented whenever I was there in ISI Kolkata, and I worked with that with Professor C.M. Murthy sir. So I have taken these images from his web page, Professor C.M. Murthy sir web page from ISI Kolkata. That is these examples on satellite images of Kolkata. That you can see that there's a 4-band images are there. One is red band, green band, blue band, and infrared band. As you can see that there is a different locations from the satellite images. So now your objective is that you have to classify these images into 2 sets. One is called the river class. As you can correctly see that there is a Hooghly River that is going over there, and beside this river you'll have some I mean urban areas kind of some kind of locations are there. I mean it is not a river area, it is a non-river area. So your objective is that how do you apply this multivariate Gaussian distribution techniques using the Bayes decision rule to classify these 2 images. So now you have this 4-dimensional feature vector is given. One is your R band, that is a 512 into 512 image size. So you have the pixel intensity values, okay, where the image size is 512 into 512. You have the G band images, you have the R band, B band images, you have this I band images. So you have total 4 band images, means 4-dimensional feature vector. So after applying, so you will get this answer. This is an output image. You will have the river class and non-river class. So some few misclassifications results that you can see, because there is some white pixels are there which must be classified data normalizations or some other techniques that I did not apply. I simply straight away applied on this data set. So now here these prior probabilities will be given to you. So now the concept of the Bayes decision rule is that, so 2 things will be given to you. So you must be knowing this class conditional probability density functions that will be given to you, and this prior probability will be given to you. So now here the prior probability as these 2 class, now prior probability for the first class is 0.3, prior probability for the second class is 0.7. Now if your prior probabilities you can change is 0.7 and for the first class and 0.3 for the second class, you will have the different scenario, and for the other also. So now how do you do it things? Okay, so now firstly you will have to choose the sample points, because training samples points you need to take. So now I mean you need to take these some river coordinates, so x coordinate and this y coordinate. As you know, this is a pixel and image is a matrix. You will have this coordinate position x comma y. So now you have to take randomly 50 sample points from the river class. Sample point means coordinate positions. So here I have taken some 50 sample points from the river class and from the non-river class. So you'll have to choose the sample points in such a way so that all this area must be covered. If you do not cover this all the area, then whenever you'll be computing this mean, so your actual mean and this computed mean will be different. So you must be it must be ensured the data points that whenever you are going to collect, so it should cover all the land part of this area or all the river part of this area. So for this way we can compute it. So now how to implement it? I just give it to this implementation step. So you have these four satellite images with equal size. Now you have this 4-dimensional feature vector. Now each pixel location. Okay, so you have the pixel location that is a 512 into 512. So because you'll have the 2 loops, one loop will be I is equal to 1 to 512 and j is equal to 1 to 512. So now for x I comma j, it is a pixel coordinate positions, and for each pixel coordinate positions you will have 4 different values. So first value for your R band, second value for your G band, third value for your B band, and last one for your I band. So for each pixel location you will have 4 different values. So that's why I am telling this is a 4-dimensional feature vector. And you have 2 class, one is called the river class, another is called this not river class. Now you take 50 sample points, means pixel locations, okay, corresponding these pixel values. So from the revert class for training for each band. Okay, so whenever you are going to take pixel location 1, 2, so for this pixel location 1, 2, for corresponding values, intensity values will be different for these pixel locations, because for this R band you will get the different pixel intensity values for the same position. For B band, intensity values will be different, but the position is same. So in this way you can capture the 50 samples points for one class and 100 samples points from the other class. Now you take this 512 into 512 samples for the testing. Now you'll have to test, or you'll have to take each and every points. You'll have to scan from, you'll have to make a loop from I is equal to 1 to 512, is equal to 1 to 512, and you test it. So whenever you are going to test it, you'll have to apply some rule. This is called the boundary rules. This is a base decisions rule. Okay, so what is the rule that I'll explain to you? Now you apply the base decisions rule to classify that all the test samples either belong to the revert class or non-revert class. If it is belong class, then make it 0, or if it is a non-revert class, make it 255. Means 0 means black, totally black, 255 means totally white. And small p2x, small pmx. Okay, and prior probability it is already given, and now you put x is your test vector. Now put x in the class I. Okay, then if the condition is satisfied, if capital P1, or you have the two class, then you have capital P1, capital P1x is greater than is equal to capital P2, capital P2x. I mean this density function for the first class for this P1x, and the density function for the second class for the P2x. And capital P1 means prior probability for the first class, capital P2 prior probability for the second class. Okay, now you take all the points, then you check that if the condition is satisfied, then not, then you compute it. Now first I'll just make it going to give it to the step, and I'll just complete my lectures. Okay, because I'm just running out of time, isn't it, Professor Padmapriya? So I'm just running out of time. Hello?
Sir, you continue, sir. You finish the session, no problem. You continue, sir.
Oh, means can I have another 10 minutes time to complete?
Yes, sir. No problem.
Okay, so now firstly, how to implement it? So now this is a very important thing, the density function. So calculate the mean of revert class. So now you have this 4 mean for 4 images, then you have mean 1, mean 2, mean 3, mean 4. So mean 1 would be mean of R band images for 50 samples point. Mean 2, similarly, you have G band images for 50 sample point. Then mean 3, then mean 4. Okay, then again you have to calculate mean for actually it is a vector. So T1 it is a vector which consists, it is a column vectors. You can have the mean 1, mean 2, mean 3. Actually it is written in a row vector where it is separated by comma. Second, you have to calculate the mean of non-revert class. So T2 will be mean 1, mean 2, mean 3. Now calculate this covariance matrix for the revert class for 50 sample points, which is a 4-dimensional feature vector. As I already told you, the size of the covariance matrix will be the dimension of the feature vector. If you have this 5-dimensional feature vector, then covariance matrix size will be 5 × 5. Okay? So now you'll have to apply this covariance matrix formula. So we have already seen this covariance matrix formula 1 by n I is equal to 1 by xi minus x bar into yi minus y1. The formula that you have already seen. Here you'll have to have the basically x minus t1 deviation and the y minus t1 deviation, and you have to multiply. Okay? Here x and y are the sample points for training. I will get 2 to the power 4 values. Okay? So now total 16 values that you will have in the covariance matrix for possible combination of the R band images. So how we are going to do it? For you will have to have R band, G band, okay, R band, B band, R band, I band. Then again you have B band, R band, B band, B band. In this way you can have. Okay. So COV of 1 1, COV of 1 1 means red. Okay, then it is a variance, because all the diagonal elements of the covariance matrix is called the variance. So now you have 4-dimensional feature vector, na? So COV of 1 1, COV of 1 2, COV of 1 3, COV of 1 4. Then COV of 2 1, COV of 2 2, COV of 2 3, COV of 2 4, COV of 3 1, 3 2, 3 3, 3 4, COV of 4 1, 4 2. So these are the things. So this is the size of the matrix. Now you can easily compute it. Okay. Now step 4, calculate this covariance matrix for Non-river class, same. You have to step 4. You'll have to river class covariance matrix you computed, and for the non-river class you have computed. Now you take the whole images as a test data. Now you'll have to make a loop for I is equal to 1 to 512 and j is equal to 1 to 512. Now the dimension of your test data will be 4 into 512 into 512. So whenever you are going to handling the data analysis and applying, and you have to run a code in Python. Okay, so now this dimensionality is very important. Okay, so that should be taken care of. Now for each pixel of the test image, you have to make a loop from I is equal to 1 to 512 into 512. Now for the river class, you compute these density functions. So for the river class, you'll have to compute the density function, and for the non-river class also, you'll have to compute the density function. Now, what is the formula for this multivariate Gaussian distributions? The formula for this multivariate Gaussian distribution is this: 1 by root over 2 pi m sigma to the power half, because these things will be cancelled out in both sides. Okay, the exp of only you need to compute this exp of this part minus half xi minus mu y. So xi minus mu y transpose sigma inverse xi minus mu y. So these things will be computed, because these portions will be for the first class and this portion will be the second part, and this left part of the exp, that will be cancelled out in both sides. So that is why you have the river class test data minus t2. So test data means your x, minus t2 means x bar, transpose inverse covariance matrix for the non-river class means sigma inverse, that you see in the formula, into test data minus t2 means x minus mu. So the formula was that x minus mu transpose sigma inverse means x minus mu. So that is written actually. Okay. Next is you calculate the density function P1. So now your P1 is there is a half was there. Now this is minus 0.5 into 1 by square root of determinant of covariance matrix, that you can easily 1 by root over 2 pi to the power 1 by root over 2 pi to the power n, that will be cancelled out. Okay, only the determinant of covariance matrix that you will have to compute for the river class, and for the second class also you can compute it. Then you will get these density values P1 and P2 for each pixel locations. Now for each pixel location, you have this test image. You apply the base rule. What is the base rule? Capital P1 is given to you. What is capital P1? 0.7. You have the three different cases: 0.7, 0.3, 0.3, 0.7, and 0.5, 0.5. Now small P1 that you have already computed here. Then this small P2 you have already computed here. Now output image, that is 255. It is a river class, or output image, it is 0, it is a non-river class. Now you have to go to step 2 and you have to repeat it for this loop from I is equal to 1 to 512 into 512. That many loops that you will have to do. And now you have to show the output image for these three different functions using IMSO functions, and then you can plot it. So these are this output that you can get it if you follow this result. So whenever you are going to applying some base decision tools, and you can apply it for your agricultural fields or any other things. This agricultural field, if you taken it from the drone, if you are just capturing the images, then before that you will have to do some data analysis. Like this, I already explained. There is a different portion of the data analysis. Okay, so these things that you can do, we already explained. So, so I think so. So some kind of deep learning that I missed up because I am just running out of time. So some other day I can discuss. Okay, Professor Padmapriya. So some other day I can discuss all these things. Okay, I think so. I just wrap up. So if you have any doubts, questions, so you can ask me.
Sir, one ma'am has asked how to merge data from various sources.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
He has asked how to merge data from various sources.
How?
Yes, put the question in that. Pudumala ma'am, are you there? Pudumala ma'am, if you are there, yeah.
Oh, here. How to merge the data? Isn't it, madam? That you are asking here.
Yes, sir. How to merge the data?
So actually, madam, the concept. Actually, these different bands data was available in these websites. Now, if you want to merge this data, so you have to apply. Actually, it follows some distributions. Whenever in the image processing toolbox, if you open it up, so you can have, there is a different bands from the RGB. If you just pass it with some different distribution, so there is a function is there. Okay, so I'm not remembering this function right now. So this this type of data was already available. But if you want to merge them and you want to make a original image, that also you can do it. So there is some functions, inbuilt function is there. But here some distributions is that we're going to use some R channel, B channel, and the I channel. So some distribution is followed. So basic mathematics is that some distribution is followed so that it maintain it. And with this equal distributions, we can just use it and you can apply some merging. Then you can have the RGB images. So you can easily do it. So there is a no problem. So in the RGB, that is I mean, it is already there in MATLAB. So you can do it, or any Python programming also.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
So thank you, sir. Thank you. It was a very informative session. Actually, we have to stick on time, so only, sir. But it is very informative. I find in other sessions it is possible.
Yes, if I could do the lot time, so I could have completed the deep learning portion. So I just wanted to give the outline the basic statistics and how the people will handle these data and the data analysis things, so that it will be more benefited for them.
Yes, sir, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. So I'm disconnecting.
Yes, sir.